Good morning, all of you.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, ma'am.
Yes, good morning. Okay, so today,
Good morning, ma'am.
yes, good morning. We'll start with a new chapter in civics, the judicial system. Okay, so our government is divided into three main organs. What are those? What are the three main organs of the government?
Ma'am, legislature,
Ma'am,
Legislature, judiciary,
What is the second one? Legislature? All
executive.
right,
executive.
okay, executive and judiciary. So, what does the legislature do?
ma'am. Third is judiciary.
Yes, third is judiciary. First is legislature. What does the legislature do?
Ma'am, it makes the laws.
All right, it makes the laws. What does executive do?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
it
it implements laws.
implements the laws.
Okay. And what is the work of the judiciary?
Ma'am, judiciary punishes the people who violate the law.
All right. So
Ma'am,
it
judiciary interprets.
interprets, all right, it interprets the laws and it punishes the lawbreakers. It sees that the laws are followed and those that don't follow the law, they are punished. So in this particular chapter, we'll have a look at the third organ of the government, that is the judiciary, and we'll have a look at our judicial system here in India. Now, the work of the judiciary is to not only judiciary, uh, it interprets the laws and that it punishes the lawbreakers, but it also upholds a right. It sees, the government, or not the government, the constitution has given us certain rights. And what are those rights called? Which those rights which are given to all the individuals?
Fundamental rights.
All right, so we have fundamental rights given to us. We have also constitutional rights given to us, like we have the right to vote, the right to be voted for, all right, and the right to property and all that. And so many rights have been given to us by the constitution, and it is the work of the judiciary to uphold our rights, to see that our rights are given to us, and in case they are violated, we can go to the courts to get our rights back. Okay, and so the judiciary, it protects our rights and the liberties, the freedom of the people. That is why people have moved from the other forms of government that we have known, from monarchy and from dictatorship, from military dictatorship, also military rule, also to democracy, which is the rule of the people. And so, because under monarchy and dictatorships, people were not given rights and people were not free to do as per their wishes. And so under democracy, we have rights and we have freedoms, and it is the work of the judiciary to protect our rights and also our freedom, and also to check the arbitrariness of the government. Now, what does that mean? It checks that the government does not do anything on its own wishes or on its own whims, rather than on a particular reason or a system. There's a system according to which the whole government, the whole country needs to be run. And so the judiciary also sees that once the ruling government is in place, it does not work according to his will and wishes, but it works according to a system. So the judiciary, it also checks that, and it interprets the constitution and maintains the supremacy or the authority of the constitution. So so it upholds that the constitution is above the government, also above all people also. And so in any case, the authority of the constitution, it needs to be upheld, and this is the work of the judiciary. Now, the work of the judiciary, it can broadly be divided into following points. First is dispute resolution. So first, it settles dispute. Now, this is the main function of the judiciary, or the primary function, to settle disputes. Now, there are so many types of disputes. It can be between citizens, and the governments, between two state governments, or between a state government and central governments, or one or two state governments and the central government. So these disputes can be of many types. So it is the work of the judiciary to settle these disputes. It does not matter among which, whether it is between people, or between people and government, or between governments. It does not matter what type of dispute, but it is the job of the judiciary to settle these disputes. Then the judicial system, the judiciary also has the power of judicial review, or we can say the Supreme Court, the highest court in our judicial system. They have the power of judicial review. So perhaps the most important, it is said to be the most important power of the Supreme Court, which is the power of judicial review. Now what it means, that the Supreme Court, they have the power to judge the, or examine the constitutionality of any law which is passed by the state government or the central government. So what it means is that when a law is passed by the state government or the central government, the judiciary, the Supreme Court, has the power to look into it and to find that whether it is according to the spirit of the constitution, according to the ideals of the constitution or not. And if any law is found which is inconsistent with our constitution or with the ideals of our constitution, and which does not go according to our constitution, and so the Supreme Court has the power to call that law null and void, means of no effect at all. And though this term judicial review, it is nowhere mentioned in our constitution, but the power of the court to declare any legislation enactment, means any law, invalid, it is provided by the constitution under Article 13. So though this term judicial review does not come anywhere in the constitution, but still under Article 13, the courts, they have the power to declare any law null and void which is not according to the spirit of the constitution. Okay, now the Supreme Court is the guardian of the constitution, and it has the right to decide. Why it is said to be the guardian of the constitution? So that to see that everything is done according to the constitution, and it interprets the things which are given in the constitution, the provisions of the constitution. It protects the rights of the people, means the things which are mentioned in the constitution, it sees to it that they are followed in every respect, in each respect. All right. And if they are not, then due course is taken by the judiciary. So the Supreme Court is said to be the guardian of the constitution, and it has the right to decide whether various matters are part of the basic structure of the constitution, and it has a right also to decide that what matters are basic to the structure of the constitution. And even the parliament, they also do not have power to make any change or amendment in the basic structure of the constitution. We have a provision of making amendments in the constitution also, or making changes in the constitution also, but even the parliament, they do not have the power to make changes in the basic structure of the constitution, like universal adult franchise, secularism, all right, and freedom of the people, the rights of the people. So what we can say is that even the governments, the parliaments, they also do not have a right to make changes in the basic structure of the constitution. Otherwise, other provisions of the constitution, according to time and change, certain changes and certain changes can be made. So certain amendments can be made in the constitution, but not in the basic structure of the constitution. Okay. Then one more work of the judiciary is to enforce the fundamental rights. And we have been given certain fundamental rights by the constitution. Can you name few of the fundamental rights that we have under the constitution?
Ma'am, equality before law.
All right, right to equality,
Ma'am, freedom. Ma'am, right to freedom.
right to freedom,
Ma'am, right against exploitation.
Right against exploitation,
Ma'am,
Ma'am, right to freedom of religion.
right to freedom of religion,
Right to constitutional
ma'am,
remedies.
cultural and educational rights.
cultural and educational rights, and
Ma'am, right to constitutional remedies.
yes, right to constitutional remedies. And so we have been given fundamental rights by the constitution. And if any citizen feels that that their rights are violated, now their rights could be violated by a person or a group or an organization, or even if they feel it is violated by the government, so we can go to the courts, all right, to get our rights back, our rights restored to us. And the Supreme Court and the High Court have powers to issue writs, WRITS. Writs are orders to restore the fundamental rights of the citizens. And so the power to issue writs, they have been given to the Supreme Court and to the High Courts. So cases involving fundamental rights can be taken only to the High Courts and the Supreme Courts, and not to the lower courts. Okay, now they are saying that let us recollect the story of Hakim Sheikh. Have you read it in class 7th? This story?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's see what this story is about. Now, this was about an agricultural laborer of West Bengal, and he fell from a running train. And then his condition became very bad because many hospitals they refused to admit him. And then he moved the Supreme Court, and the court decided that it was a case of violation of the fundamental right to life. And under Article 21 of the Constitution means the hospitals were not allowing him entry in the hospitals, and that was denying life to him, because he could have died also. And the right to health is implicit in the right to life. Right to health comes under the right to life. And the court therefore decided that, directed the West Bengal government to pay Sheikh an adequate compensation for his grievous injury. First, he fell down from the moving train, and then he was not taken care of in any hospital, and so he was given a compensation by the West Bengal government. That was the verdict of the Supreme Court. All right, so we had a look at what are the functions, or what work does a judiciary do. Now, we have an independent and free judiciary. Now, we have three organs of the government in such a way that the executive is made answerable to the legislature, whereas judiciary is free and independent. Free and independent. Executive, that means the ruling government, that is made answerable to the legislature. And why that? So that the ruling government, since it is a very powerful part organ of the government, so they cannot do as per their wishes once they are in power. And so that is why they are made answerable, so that they do not misuse their powers. That is why they are made answerable to the legislature, whereas judiciary is free and independent. Now, why we need an independent judiciary? Now, they are saying that suppose you are living in a judicial system, whereas the minister has the power to appoint and dismiss a judge, wherein any minister, he has the power to appoint a judge or to dismiss a judge, and you have a property dispute with that minister. Now, what will happen when the matter is to be decided in the court of law? The judge is obviously likely to deliver a judgment or give a judgment which is in favor of the minister. Why? Because person, obviously the judge would be obliged to the minister, and he may be afraid that if he does anything against the wishes of the minister, then he would be dismissed from the court also, and he could be dismissed from service also. And so he is not independent, because he is not able to give a independent and a free verdict. And so therefore the Constitution of India, they have provided for an independent judiciary. And so the courts, they are not under the government, and they do not act on behalf of any government or the legislative body. The power and functions of the three organs of the government, they are clearly defined in the Constitution. And there is also a system which is called as the separation of powers. So the executive and legislature, they cannot interfere in the work of the judiciary. And the judges of the High Court and Supreme Court, they are appointed by the president, in consultation with the Chief Justice of India and the other judges. But once appointed in office, and it is very difficult to remove them, even for the legislature and the executive body, and they can only be removed from office by the president on grounds of proved misuse of office, that they have misused the authority that is given to them, or they have shown some behavior which is not good for a judge of the High Court or a Supreme Court, or incapacity, that they have shown that they are not able to perform their duties well. So only on these grounds a person or a judge can be removed from his office by the president. And so to do this, now this is also not very easy. This is called as impeachment, and to do this, a resolution to this effect, it has to be passed in both houses of the parliament, and it has to be passed by majority, say majority of each house, and by not only simple majority but by two-third majority of members who are present and voting. And so the removal of judge is a very difficult process, and unless the members they agree, most of the members agree to it, so you cannot remove a judge from his position. And then the constitution, it also forbids the discussion of the conduct of a judge of the Supreme Court. And the constitution also forbids that in parliament also they cannot simply discuss about the behavior of a judge just like that, and only on a motion, like just like a bill is passed, so in the same way motions are also passed in the parliament. So only except on a motion for an address to the president for the removal of a judge, means only they can ask for a they can um, put forward a motion for the removal of judge to the president. And then maybe a little bit that why they want that judge to be removed, and then voting takes place and all that. But otherwise the legislative body, they cannot simply discuss about the behavior of the of any judge just like that. Now, why it is necessary, we had a look that if the judiciary is not independent, then obviously we will not have free and fair judgment. And so it is necessary to have an independent judiciary, so that the judges, they can do their duties, they can discharge their duties without fear, and without being favorable to anyone, and without the interference of the executive and the judiciary, executive and the legislature, because both are very powerful bodies. Legislative one is the law making body, other is the ruling government. And so that is why the judiciary is made independent, so that the executive and the legislature, they do not interfere in its working. Now that does not mean that the judiciary, they can work as their wish. Obviously they also cannot work according to their will and according to their whims and wishes, but they also have to follow the constitution in letter and spirit, means letter in every word that is written in the constitution, and also according to ideals, the spirit of the constitution, they have to work accordingly. Okay, so the works of the functions of the constitution, or the functions which the judiciary performs, we had a look at that. Then why we need an independent judiciary, and now we'll have a look at the structure of courts, or the structure of judicial system in India. Now the Constitution of India, it provides for a single integrated judicial system. Now if you see on this particular page, you will find that it is in the shape of a pyramid or a triangle with top, all right, pointed top, and the base is like that. And now what this means is that unlike some of the other federal countries of the world, what are federal countries, by the way? Federal system of government. Yes, class 8.
Ma'am,
हाँ बेटा.
ma'am, in this the ruling power is between the center and the state.
All right, okay. So the power is divided between the central and the constituent units. Now that can be central and state, and even it could be a third tier also. Alright, so now what that means is that many federal countries of the world, unlike India, they means there are other federal countries, but where they have the codes for different states, different federal units of their country, and which are free and autonomous on their own. But in India, they are all joined together, and so India does not have separate state courts, and the structure of the Indian judiciary is pyramidal with Supreme Court at the top. Under it we have the high courts, and below the high courts come the district court and the subordinate courts at the lowest level. So it is like a pyramid. Supreme Court, the highest court in our country, then comes the high court, then the district courts, and then the lower courts or the subordinate courts under it, including the village courts and all that. Okay, the panchayat and all that. Okay, so the lower courts, they function under the direct superintendence of the high courts, and means the lower courts will work under the supervision of the higher courts, and they are under the higher courts. And so the structure of the Indian judiciary is pyramidal, and it consists of the Supreme Court in Delhi, and which has 31 judges, 24 high courts, and these high courts have a sanctioned strength of 725 judges and 14,447 subordinate courts and judges. Now, the Indian High Court Act was passed in 1861, and as a result of it, the high courts were established in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras in 1862. Then the High Court at Allahabad, it came up in 1866, and with having a jurisdiction or area of authority over UP, and it also has a bench at Lucknow. So the Allahabad High Court has a Lucknow bench. Alright, then the Delhi High Court was established in 1966. The High Court of Punjab and Haryana also came up in 1966 at Chandigarh. Now both these states have a common High Court. Then there is a common High Court at Guwahati for Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram and Nagaland. So one High Court for all these states. Then Manipur, Meghalaya and Tripura, they have their separate High Courts. Then in the year 2003, high courts were established, one each at Bilaspur, Nainital and Ranchi, with having their jurisdiction means area of authority over states of Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand. So we have one Supreme Court, then under it we have the high courts. Some states have their own individual high courts, but some states, they share a single high court among them. Then under the high courts, we have the subordinate or the district courts at the lowest level, and now they are basically at the district or the tehsil level, and these district courts, they hear many types of cases. And now most of us, we interacted with the district level courts or the subordinate courts, and each our country is divided into so many states. The state is divided into many districts, and each district, they are presided by a district judge. Now each state has a high court, which is the highest court of the state, or sometimes, like I said, smaller states, they may have a high court in common also. And so the high court is presided by the chief justice of the high court. The district courts are presided by a district judge. High courts are presided by the chief justice of a high court, and at the national level, that is at the Supreme Court level, which is located at the national capital New Delhi, the Supreme Court is presided by the Chief Justice of India. So the highest judge of Supreme Court is called as a Chief Justice of India, whereas the highest judge of High Courts, they are called as a Chief Justice of the High Court. Okay. Now the decisions which are made by the Supreme Court, they are binding on all the other courts, and that is why what we mean by having an integrated, single and integrated judiciary, that whatever decision is taken by the main court, now it will be followed by all the courts which come under it. And likewise, the decisions which are made by the High Court, now they are binding on all the lower courts. Now then we also have a appellate system of jurisdiction in our country. Now what that means is that a person through appeals can bring his case from the lower courts to the upper courts. So like for example, you bring a case to the district level, and you're not happy with the verdict given here, so through appeal you can take that court take that case from a district level court to a high court, and even if you are not satisfied there, you can take it further to the Supreme Court. And whatever is the verdict of the Supreme Court, that is final and binding on all courts, and that is what we mean by a single integrated judicial system. Okay, now I think now we just means very quick we look we can have at this tracking a case from the district court to the Supreme Court. Now like I said that cases can be taken from the lower level courts to the higher level courts through appeals. So there is an example of this. Now let us examine what we mean by the appellate system of jurisdiction. And this is a case of the state of Maharashtra versus Sandhya Jadhav and others, 2006, and this is from the trial court to the Supreme Court. How this case went from a trial court to the Supreme Court, we'll see here. Now the main accused in this case was Sandhya Jadhav, and there were some other people who were co-accused with him, and they were residing as tenants. Alright, so they did not own a house, they were living as tenants in the house of Govind Rao Goratkar, and on that particular day, 6th June 1990, the landlord, he went over to the accused people, he went over to them, to their to his tenants, to demand house rent. Now after that, they had some verbal fight followed, and the accused people, they assaulted the landlord. And so when the landlord's in nephew, he saw that landlord's nephew is Anand Goratkar, when he intervened in this process, so Sandhya Jadhav, he attacked him with a knife and he killed him. And then on the complaint of Govind Rao and the brother of the deceased person, the police, they registered an FIR, and the accused people were arrested. Then when the accused FIR is lodged, then the police, they start their investigation. And so the people, they were, because it was a murder case, so the accused people were arrested, and investigation was conducted, and the accused, they were charged with committing a murder. Alright, so then the accused is arrested also, FIR is also there, and the police have investigated also, they have also got certain witness and evidences. So now the case it opens in a trial court, and now in reply to all the charges that were put on them, the accused people, they pleaded that they were not guilty. And then what they said, that on the day of this particular incident, Govind Rao, he came along with 5 and 6 persons, and he started to beat them, but the prosecution, they were not convinced. And on the conclusion of the trial court, or the court of the sessions judge, the Supreme Court and the High Court, they hear both type of cases, the criminal cases as well as the civil cases. We'll discuss what these cases are in the next class when we'll have it. And the criminal cases, but at the district level we have separate courts for civil cases and criminal cases. And so the criminal cases, they go to the sessions court. And so the trial court, or the court of the sessions judge, he found that the accused people were guilty of the charges and sentenced them to life imprisonment. Okay, now the accused, they were not happy with the verdict, so they appealed to the High Court, and they took the stand that this case, it cannot be covered under the section 302 IPC, as it was not intentional murder. And the occurrence means it was not intentional murder. Now all this took place in the course of now there was a sudden quarrel with the landlord, where the landlord and his nephew, they were the aggressors, means they came there and they started the fight, and they started to be violent. And since the right of self-defense was also available to Sandhya, and so they said that all this happened just like that. It was not premeditated, and it took place in course of a sudden quarrel or a sudden fight, and therefore section 302 under the IPC has no application here. And it also pointed out that there was no intention to kill, as just a single blow of the knife was given, and he was not knife was not thrust into him many times. But the Nagpur branch of the Bombay High Court, it did not accept all that, and it upheld the decision which was given by the trial court for life imprisonment. Now, finally, they were not even happy with that, and then finally appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court judge, he was convinced that the murder, it was not intentional, so it was unintentional, and without, there was no premeditation, and so death was caused in a sudden fight and just by a single blow of knife. And so the conviction was altered from section 302 IPC to section 304, the second part IPC, and life imprisonment of Sandhya Jadhav and the co-accused, it was changed to imprisonment by 7 years. And so you could say the appeal was partly allowed by the Supreme Court, means they were not totally forgiven, but life imprisonment was changed to imprisonment for 7 years. So that is what we mean by appellate system of jurisdiction, that how through appeals you can take a case from the lower courts to the higher courts. Okay, so I'll stop here. Is there anything you have not understood? Yes, class 8? Is it clear? Have you understood everything?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, finding it interesting or boring?
Ma'am, interesting.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay, then that's very nice. All right, so this will be all for today.